It says I'm live, so I guess I'm live. I've had a day, I guess, a week, a month, a year. Greetings from beautiful Yarmouth, Maine. There's a foot of snow on the ground. It's still coming down, and I'm just sort of sitting in the shop and sipping away. It's Today was kind of tough. I've been It's been tough for a lot of folks like me lately. We're up to 209 bills introduced in various state legislatures and, well, even one in Congress, I think. Uh, Taking away rights I've enjoyed for 25 years. I'm astonished at the lack of concern on the part of my fellow citizens for the all-out assault on um, my rights. And I don't think I'm alone. In fact, I know I'm not. Um, I'm talking about trans people. I transitioned 25 years ago. And trust me, it's not an easy journey. For any of you folks who are wondering if this journey is a lark or uh, a passing fancy, trust me, it's not. It really isn't. And what's disturbing me right now is that enough people are convinced that it is and are so scared of the notion that people like me could even exist that they're taking to their state houses to make sure that it is incredibly difficult for younger people to embark on this journey. So I just want to say, I don't know personally a single person who is trans that ever wanted to start this journey, that ever wanted to be in a position of being another, being of taking oneself away from the expectations of our parents, of the taking ourselves away from the fellowship of our friends. We're taking ourselves outside uh, of the expectations of society as a whole. This isn't this isn't a lark, but it is for those of us who are trans. A journey of self-discovery I know that I've engaged with people over. I guess the reason I'm doing this stream is I've engaged with people over the course of the past couple of days in really just incredibly weird situations where people are basically saying you can't be you, that you are impossible. In my frame of mind, I'm speaking of them, from their perspective, I'm impossible. And this is something that most of us have had to deal with for a fair stretch of our lives. You're impossible. You're not. You can't be you because I don't see you as you. Now imagine how difficult that is. Imagine how difficult it is for a child who's just learning to communicate. Take it from the kid's perspective. The child says who they are, and they're told you're not, and you can't be. Not every trans person shares that experience. Not every trans person shares that experience. People come to, hey, I've got someone coming into the stream. This is kind of cool. Let's see. Add to. Hey, perps.
Hello.
Good to have you.
Well, I definitely was not planning on doing anything tonight, but I was
Neither
about to
was
wind down and go to watching cartoons to just get my brain to shut off.
neither was I really.
And we've got Titan in the side chat.
I know. So anyway, I just if I could just go on a little bit longer.
Sorry.
No worries. Um yeah, I was saying imagine how it is to be uh told you're the impossible girl. And that was my childhood. Not all trans people get there. Not all trans people are, well, a lot of people call this the classic thing. I guess I'm a classic, but no matter at what stage of life you uh, have a realization of who you are, and that there's a certain incompleteness in how you can express and how you can be. This is hard shit. And I have a difficult time reconciling the, I mean, we're talking about 207 bills already, you know, state legislatures, national figures getting up and saying, we are so concerned about 0.5% of the population that we are willing to make it a national issue to take away, not to grant rights. I'm not asking for special rights, but to take away the rights I've already had. I'm 69 years old. I transitioned 25 years ago. I'm used to freedom
Yeah.
and liberty. And I've negotiated that path. And I don't know, I don't honestly know what to do, how to communicate uh, uh, effectively. The absolute, from my point of view, I mean, look at it. I like to have a sense of humor here, but look at it from my perspective. It is so absurd that state legislatures want to regulate where I take a piss, where I walk, how I walk. Can you imagine how what that means to your life, to anybody's life?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that doesn't affect anybody but you. You know,
It affects
any of
me.
the people. No, but I mean, which bathroom you go into and all that. That
You know,
has no effect on anyone else who's in that store.
I would hope not, because I usually shut the door. I mean, what do people usually do, right? I mean, it's dumb stuff. And so I just after a day and of of after actually months of being inundated with bill after bill after bill after bill, and hearing from people who are really upset about this stuff. Um, I just wanted to get on and vent a little bit. Um, and maybe give an opportunity for other people who have questions about this, um, who even care. I mean, I probably should introduce myself. My channel is itsy bitsy teeny weeny, tiny polka dot bikini. Well, I always kind of wished when I was little that that could be a thing, but whatever. It's really small. Um, but
Yeah, I'll never pull off a bikini.
I think it's time to have it's time for uh it's time for those of us who have lived a long time, um, having gone through transition and lived a long time as who we are, and to a greater or lesser degree successfully, uh, to say, hey, enough's enough. I've spoken to Part of the impetus here is I've spoken to like three people early in transition today who are just crushed. I mean, we all go through this. The early part of this drill is extremely stressful, especially if one is transitioning after as I did, after a long period of reckoning with uh, this aspect of who we are. Because if one transitions later in life, you have a life behind you. You have business acquaintances, friends, family, perhaps children, perhaps a spouse. All of these things are extremely hard for all of those people in your life, your personal life, before you start talking about doctors and psychologists and all of this stuff. which is why I said earlier on, nobody undertakes this as a lark. And it seems to me that there's an awful lot of cavalier attitude going on in state houses and on the hustings out there, making a big deal out of a small number of people, uh, and just jumping into other people's shit. For what reason? For what reason?
Well, what makes it viable for the politicians is we are such a small number of people. We're not enough people that all of our votes together would matter.
Is this true?
So we can't just rely on our own group. We have to rely on having allies. We have to rely on, people in larger communities who are willing to support us.
Yeah, we do. And we have to, it's the I think that people are less. I think that being social animals, as we are, we're all social animals, and people like to be a part of a community, and people get tribal, and it sometimes takes a bit of an effort to realize that no tribe succeeds without the other tribes being able to succeed. I think that it's very it, if we lose that, then the tribes go to war. And
Yeah.
that's what I see happening right now. It's like the tribes are going to war. There are the liberals, the conservatives, the Democrats, the Republicans, the conservatives, the Labor Party, the this or
Yeah.
that or the other thing. And people are willing to take an out group and make an example of them. So you have Democrats saying we stand for trans rights, or God knows labor in the UK is not standing for anything as far as I can tell. But you have in the political sphere, you have one group saying we stand with trans rights, and then you have another group, and then you have the people on the other side that see the leverage of that little group because they belong to no group at all and they're expendable, going after using the expendable group as a whipping post to own the libs or to own, we stand with you. It's so, I have, I have, given the work I do, I'm a sailmaker. I'm a sailor. And a lot of the people in that small world, and it is a very small world, have a shit ton of money and have very conservative views. And yet, because of my skill set, because of whatever I can contribute to a sailboat racing program, I'm people want me to sail with them. It doesn't matter that I'm trans. Some of them don't even know that I'm trans, which is another thing that, from the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of years, um, I have that privilege, and we all need to be aware of the privilege. But so many people, whether they're liberal or conservative, will say to me, "Well, I have your back," and I believe that. But the problem is, it's hard for me to see uh, to know what that means. When you say you have my back, are you aware of the fact that there is a firing squad in front of me and my back is against the wall? I don't care if you have my back. I care what you do about the firing squad. This is the thing, and this is the position that a lot of people feel. I think it's the people I talk to anyway, us and especially among especially among those of us who transitioned ages ago. I think that the issues for people who are transitioning now, be they young or older, are the pardon me, are primarily the personal issues of trying to work it through with your doctors, with your you know with the people around you, because it is tremendously difficult to do that. And add on top of that, like in 2000, 1998, 2000, I mean, people like to think of that as the dark ages, but I swear to God, it was easier. I mean, the medical hoops one had to jump through, and all of that stuff. If one was undertaking medical transition, those parameters were much, much harder to jump through then than they are now. And that's a good thing, in my view. Um, there's still not, it's still not walk in and, walk in and start, you know, and oh, in 2 months, you're going to have a, a, a ticket to transition. And I certainly wouldn't advise anybody to just jump into this stuff. But anybody who does move, and it's that the idea to me that it's some kind of social contagion is unbelievably silly. Because who the hell would go through this shit? Pardon me, I'm smoking a cigarette. Am I doing
And
this right? By the way, I have no idea.
you're doing fine. Yeah.
This is like the first actual. I'm gonna go on the intertubes and vent. And I don't know if this is on Twitch or not because I don't have Twitch going on. I've got limited resources here. I've got an iPad, an iPhone, and this is how I'm doing this. But I don't know. I just wanted to get on. I wanted to make a statement tonight because I spoke with a couple of friends privately today, and they're hurting. And they're hurting more for personal reasons, but all of this impacts all of this impacts me too. I mean, I wish I could say that I'm carrying through and but it's hard to just it's hard to actually do the work I need to do because um, it's hard to get away from the fact that 207 bills that state legislatures and I was on a stream last night with Amy Newman, and it's like you go into toxic spaces, expect toxic garbage. Well, she went over and had a chat with some 20-year-old intern who's intern for uh, Roger Stone, really, and and the kid spent uh, the entirety of the so-called debate on PNR, a place I will never frequent. I'm not going onto that Discord server. Literally using T slurs and saying you'll never be a woman and all of this stuff. And Amy's strong. And God love her for jumping in there and doing that. And it made the kid look like a complete idiot, but still, it's disheartening that there are so many people who view us and our community as you know as a pinata, as a one person in that stream actually said, I think the question was, one of the participants, a somber and serious participant in that whole thing, said, well, what's the point of this? And the person literally said entertainment. And so it's like, that to me is like, it's like, okay, we're back in Maury Povich land. Eyeballs on screens and asses in seats. And I have a hard time engaging with this stuff, because in so many venues, that's what it is: eyeballs on screens and asses in seats, and you know and the money coming in, the super chats and the this and the that or the other thing, or just the thrills and chills, and and get crude about it, a wank fest. It's like, I don't want to be part of a wank fest. I want to make a difference.
Yeah.
I'm really gratified that there are actually people watching this. It's like, what the fuck? Thank you, Inter. It's great to see you here. Thanks, Titan, for. Of course, Titan is everywhere. I think Titan is just, he's a Titan. So what are you going to do?
I have noticed that he has the ability to watch more than 6 live chats simultaneously.
I don't think, sure, that Amy allowed herself to be used as entertainment for transphobes, actually. And I think that the yeah, Titan is the internet. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, I don't think that. I think that this is the tricky line. This is the double-edged sword. If you can make your so-called opponent look like a complete ass, which she did, and in the after, there were several of the people that were in that so-called debate. PNR is a cesspool anyway. And several of the people came over and said that theists, basically, because in theory the debate was supposed to be about God, and it turned into a shouting fest about trans issues, which is like, huh? Which often happens. It's very, very curious, because a lot of these people, a lot of these fundy types, you scratch them a little bit, and out comes the homophobia, racism, transphobia, all of the poison that lurks in the dirt comes screaming out. So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
religion is really good about breeding bigotry and hate.
it is. But there's the one other video aside from, of course, the Christmas stream that we did, perps, that I was happy to be a part of. That was actually the very first live stream thing I did. The only other video on my channel at the moment is a sermon I gave. It's like, I call it a sermon. Well, it fucking was a sermon. It's like, I'm a lapsed Methodist, right? But a friend of mine who is a Methodist pastor, whose eldest child is trans, asked me to speak at for Trans Day of Remembrance at her church. And I think there's a way to reach those people.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of people in the atheist community will say, well, you can't reach them because they believe in nonsense. Well, how would you put that in 1962 to the people that were struggling for civil rights? You believe in nonsense, Dr. King. Does that work? You believe in nonsense, Malcolm. Does that work? I mean, now, don't get me wrong. There's also James Baldwin, who I believe was both queer and an atheist, and Bayard Rustin, who was queer and a Quaker. But you're not going to get enough people to stand up against 207 bills on the basis of that they're unjust. I don't care where your sense of justice or injustice or your sense of morality or immorality comes from, as long as it's there. And I say to uh, uh, when I am talking with theists, I always said, unlike Matt Dillon, who says if you believe in impossible things, then you're training your brain to believe in ridiculous things. I agree with that. That's true on a philosophical level. But sometimes it's very difficult to get people to jump over that philosophical level when the problems exist in the here and now.
Yeah. Well, especially, people who have grown up, all their life believing in their religion. It has become such a part of their life by the time they're an adult that it's really hard for them to separate from that. And it's really hard for anyone else to convince them that there's a reason to separate from that, because they will see it as a good thing. They will see it as a very positive part of their character.
I mean, I'm I'm the the reason I think I can reach out to these to to theists is because of my background. As a kid who was raised in the tradition of the social gospel, um, I went to I had a very strange thing. The church I went to as a kid was mostly black, and it was very, very centered on the movement in the 60s. And my sister is considerably older, like 15 years older than I. And she and her fiance, then husband, were very, very involved in the civil rights movement. Um, it's possible to reach people who aren't. I'm not sure I could walk into a fundamental. I'm not sure I could walk into a Billy Graham crusade and change anybody's mind. For example, but it's using, there's an appeal to emotion. There's the appeal to emotion that Billy Graham uses. I mean, it's a manipulative and uh, it's a manipulative tool that you can either use to encourage people to do good things or bad things. I mean, religion was used to justify slavery in the
Hmm.
antebellum South. And, you know, that's obviously a bad thing. Religion was also used to justify abolition in the antebellum North and in the antebellum South among black folk. Eyes on the prize. I mean, I can go, I can sing, "Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me."
Well, that's one of the ridiculous things is that you can use the Bible to support both sides of virtually any discussion.
Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. You know, that's, those were the songs. Those were the songs of the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
We shall overcome. That's a spiritual, and King's famous concluding line at the Lincoln Memorial: "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last." That's from a spiritual. So to so to uh, to drop that as a, well, it's all bullshit, ain't gonna get me my freedom. Ain't gonna get me my freedom. It ain't gonna stop these Bible thumping assholes in Arkansas and Texas and Oklahoma and Utah. God almighty. I mean, you know, the hypocrisy in these laws is ridiculous. I mean, that the Utah uh, uh, somebody tried to play a politician on our side of the issue, introduced an amendment as an involved. It was an amendment. The bill in Utah was forbidding any sort of medical care for trans teens, and the amendment was to specifically exempt cisgender teens from uh, breast augmentation or reduction surgery, which and the bill passed. I mean, the argument was we're protecting the children from bodily mutilation. That's the argument. But it's okay if a teenage girl uh, wants breast augmentation. as long as they're cis.
Yeah.
Or reduction as long as they're cis. Because that's normal, right? That fits into that's normal. I mean,
Not
I don't know any teenage boy, cis or trans, that wants a huge rack. Doesn't know. But I know teenage boys who want no rack. They're trans.
well, as a teenage boy, I wanted a nice rack, but that was
Well,
before I
that's right.
had all the vocabulary for what being trans was.
It's just hard. It's just hard. It's just, it's literally astonishing to me that these laws are being introduced. It's like not the the discourse revolves around, oh, trans people want these special rights or want rights.
Yeah.
And the plain fact of the matter is we have had these rights for years. I mean, it's been a matter of how do you negotiate this sort of thing? It's mostly been quiet, uh, a quiet reckoning between ourselves, our communities, our doctors, our relatives. And now it needs to be a reckoning that includes our state and federal representatives. So this is not a question of the broader community affording, making laws to ensure our rights to bodily autonomy are enshrined in law. Our
Hmm.
rights to accommodations, like, well, let's take bathroom bills. This is like the legislature deciding to resegregate the bathrooms and the water fountains.
Yeah.
So it's an affirmative action on the part of legislatures to disenfranchise us, to take away what we already have. And I'd like to flip that switch so people realize this is what's going on. I mean, there are literally bathroom bills being reintroduced. It's like, well, who shows their who shows their birth certificate to go to the head?
Yeah. And who is judging who looks masculine enough or feminine enough?
Most of these laws impact cis women more than they do trans women.
Well, of course they're going to, just because there are a lot more cis women. And yeah, there are going to be more cis women who may look slightly masculine than there are trans women.
I mean, a lot of women have husky voices. A lot of women are large. A lot of women are butch.
Mhm.
I mean, You know, you're going to I mean, the most absurd bill. The most absurd bill in this batch was some guy in North Dakota. I mean, North Dakota is like ground zero for a bunch of idiots. This guy introduced a bill saying imposing a $5,000 fine uh, for someone who asked to be referred to by pronouns not consistent with their DNA. Now, that's just fucking bizarre. That's just fucking bizarre.
Well, and that, of course,
Before,
is going to get right into okay, how do you refer to intersex people?
well, yeah, there's that. And, another hot topic, and, Amy, I wanted to pick a bone with Amy about her. It's like, nobody is saying that you're ever going to be a biological female. It's like, well, now here it's if you look at sex as a bimodal distribution, then there's all of this stuff, and of course the presupposition, what I would refer to as a presuppositionalist point of view of the strict binary people is that there are men, there are women, and there's nothing in between. Well, that's you can say that, but it's not true. And besides which, I think Forrest Falkai goes into, well, what's a man, what's a woman, so you can break it down to gamete size. Well, even at that, there are some people that don't produce gametes. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, but maybe so. To me, it's like sex is what's observed. I mean, the genes. It's that your chromosomes carry your genes. Your genes will express in different ways depending on the environment that they are operating in. So if your genes are operating, if the human genes are operating, even if you're XY, if the genes on all your chromosomes are operating in an environment that is rich in estrogen, they will produce secondary female characteristics, and in some cases will produce primary female sexual characteristics, with the exception perhaps of ovaries. And so it's the gene expression. It makes a huge difference, and presentation and everything else. That's you can't go there for somebody to say you to use the pronouns associated with your DNA. Well, your DNA will do whatever whatever's running around in your bloodstream.
Yeah. Well, Titan, they just brought up about don't tell them about chimeras; their heads will explode.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's even though I was born with a functioning penis, I have 2 lumps in my abdomen that my doctor in New York thought might possibly be underdeveloped ovaries. That I may have been born with both.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, but that's not a matter for some North Dakota legislator to poke his nose into. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, it's just dumb.
Well, and that's with so many of these bills. The problem is that these things shouldn't just be written by politicians without having some medical professionals in the room to tell them, no, it just doesn't work that way.
The problem, Purple, is that the medical professionals are in the rooms, and they just simply don't want to listen. It's like, wow, 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 wow. I think that the leading lights of all the of like the AMA and the American Psychiatric Association and the gynecological folks, the professional associations ought to be louder about this stuff. But then
Yeah.
again, you look at what happened with look at what happened with the with virologists being pilloried and the people that are going after um, Dr. Fauci at this point in time. It's like medical professionals can say, well, I've got 80 years with what it's like say 60 years of of a study behind me, but I'm going to listen to some idiot on YouTube.
Well, the whole anti-vax thing that was actively promoted by a lot of politicians just because they thought it would hurt the economy if people tried to be safe.
Yeah, but it's kind of hurtful to the economy to have millions of people dead. That's not
Yeah,
good. It's not a good thing, really.
but that's the problem with our form of capitalism. There's never any long-term planning. Nothing ever projects beyond the end of the next quarter.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, that's the problem with politics, but that's the issue. Public health and shouldn't public. Well, I'm gonna slit myself in the throat here if I'm gonna choke myself off. Politics is a matter of the polis. The polis is the city, right? It's like that's why we have political discussions. But uh, you need to have. You can't have. Uh, you can't have matters of personal health be decided by people sitting and you know making stupid decisions on the basis of majority rule when you're talking about people's well-being. And I guess that's I guess that's the other thing. It's like a lot of people say, well, what's the answer to all this? Well, it's education. Okay, well, you got Ron DeSantis banning fucking books. I tweeted out
Yeah.
today. I tweeted out today and tweeted or when I think it's this morning. I open the thing and it's like, oh, Ron DeSantis is banning books from classrooms. Okay, and two things Ron did today that God love him. Ron bans books from classrooms, and he demands a list of everyone who's had genital reconstructive surgery in Florida.
Yep, I heard about that.
He wants a list.
Yep.
Whenever people start making lists like that, I get a little worried.
Yeah. Well, the Republicans know it's all about education. That's why they're trying to outlaw teaching history.
Because here's the thing, the last time that happened in exactly that little package there, you ban the books, burn the books, and you demand a list was when the Nazis walked into Magnus Hirschfeld's little institute in Berlin, burned the books, and kept the lists of the people who were there. And those people wound up with pink triangles on them.
Yep.
So this is a little bit concerning to me.
Very few people realize that's where the pink triangle came from.
Yeah. So I get worried about that. It's just like, well, education's fine until education is killed.
Well, democracy only works with a well informed populace. And that's why the Republicans want to prevent that. If they can't limit what information people are getting, they're going to do what they can to confuse the issues.
That's propaganda. Oh, Titan. Yep, Titan brings up a good point. DeSantis today said he eliminated African studies because it included a queer studies section. Well, this is a collegiate course, right? First of all, it's it's an African studies course at the collegiate level. I mentioned earlier, it's like there are queer black people, you know, you know, Bayard Rustin, queer guy, King's right hand man, behind the scenes, but organizer of the March on Washington.
I know it's based on anecdotal experience, but I'm convinced that there's a lot more queer black men than any of these surveys or polls are ever going to show, because it has such a stigma in their community that very few of them can admit it publicly.
I'll tell you a story. As I said, the congregation I attended, the church I went to when I was a young person in Boston, um, my I won't get into my back pages entirely, but I will share with you that uh, when I was of drinking age, me and my boyfriend would frequent the bars in the seedy on the seedy side of town, and there was this one bar that was really kind of cool. There was a really good piano player. It was mostly black, and really good music, and a bit of a mixed community. It wasn't explicitly a gay bar, but a lot of gay people were in there. And I ran into this guy from my church who was a deacon, who it's like he saw me, I saw him, we went, oh. It was pretty funny. I was like, I don't know whether to be scared or like, okay. But
Well, and that's what's led me to the conclusion I just said, that, since the 90s, I met a lot of people through the internet or even through the BBSs that predated the internet. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of people who would never be out public that showed up at the rather interesting parties.
Anyway, I don't know. I just felt like coming on and ranting a little bit because it's been a bad day. I'm so tired of this, and I don't know what to do. I don't fucking know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sort of at this point where that to a certain degree I've had a bit of a voice in the atheist community, and I get sort of off on the wrong side with my pitch to say, hey, look, we're not going to achieve religious freedom without religious people, because not because we live in a Christian country, it's because a lot of people still have an attachment to a God belief. And it's like, what do you do with that? You're not going to disabuse them of the notion that you're, without being a dick about it, you're not going to disabuse them of that notion. I mean, you can argue with them, and that's fine. I'm happy to have that argument. Um, but too frequently, the argument to me, particularly with people who hold fundamentalist beliefs, is you scratch the surface, and part of the reason they're hanging on to the religious belief is because they harbor these horrible prejudices against gay people, against black people, against, they harbor horrible beliefs that they believe are justified by their God belief.
Yeah.
And when you're talking with people like that, where do you go? It's like it's arguing with a presuppositionalist. I'm right because I'm right because I'm right. It's like Seitan Brudenkeg. It's like, what are you going to do? How do you know that? 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 Where's that argument go? It goes nowhere.
Yeah. The main thing I try to push on is just to get people to realize that, okay, trans people may be the main focus that they're on right now, but yeah, once they've done away with us, who's going to be the next group they go after? Because, like what you were saying about the medical stuff, that it used to just be you discuss it with your doctor. Well, people don't realize Roe versus Wade was never about abortion. Roe
Yes.
versus Wade was about that exactly. Roe versus Wade said that what a woman and her doctor discussed in his office was no business of anyone else. So, what we are fighting for is the same thing that would protect the right to abortion.
I mean, there's a woman on Twitter by the name of Bryn Tannehill who, uh, a lot of us saw this coming, and a lot of us were screaming about it, and screaming into the void. And here I am screaming into the void. At this point in time, it's like, we were screaming, look, if Roe goes down, and it's gonna go down because of the court, because of the Supreme Court, this is what's gonna happen. You know, it's a cascade. It's no coincidence that the bill to outlaw abortion and the bill to outlaw trans care in Texas, those two bills, the first ones, uh, in 2021, it came out. It's no coincidence in my mind that they came out on the same day. It's an assault on bodily autonomy. It's assault on individual personal freedom. And it's scary to me that we have a Supreme Court justice who would invalidate his own marriage and leave it up to the states to make that decision. You know, I think Clarence Thomas would vote to overrule Loving versus Virginia. It's ridiculous, which is crazy, but I think he'd do it.
Yeah, maybe he's always wanted a divorce, but he thinks the public scrutiny of it would be too much, so this is easier for him.
I don't know.
Bad joke.
Maybe Nicholas will chime in on that one. Our legal beagle in the chat. Hi, Nick. I'm so pleased that you guys came over here. Holy shit. I didn't expect this. I thought I was going to be talking to the void.
Well, when I came in, I posted on Twitter that you were live, so was hoping I could attract somebody's attention.
Currently you did.
I don't know if I'm responsible for any of these people, except maybe Aunt Jer. I think she's the only one who really pays attention to me here.
Really? I pay attention to you, know that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ah, Titan. That's the guy. There's the guy. The guy was everywhere, of course, naturally. Well, anyway, it's getting on 25 to 2 in the morning here, and I'm beginning to wind down. But I really thanks for coming, everybody. I really
Well,
appreciate it.
you've been going
Like and
over an hour.
subscribe. I think I'm obligated to say something silly like and subscribe. And watch my sermon. What the hell, you know? Maybe I'll do some more of this shit. I don't know. I just, you know, I'd love to. I don't mind arguing. You know, I've been on Katie's show. I don't mind arguing with people. Uh, Sometimes it's just this, and I do it for the same. You know, I do it for the same reasons that Katie started the transatlantic. Katie and Arden started the transatlantic con program, and what Matt frequently says, it's not for the it's not for the it's not for the people that agree with me. That goes for, you know, I'm sure I've pissed off a number of atheists anyway, being that, hey, we need a bigger tent because my tent pole is, first of all, medical waste, but second of all, you know, it's just not broad enough. Uh, it's it's we need everybody pulling together here, because what we're talking about here is human rights. We're not talking about particular rights. We're talking about the rights of every single human being.
Yeah.
And it's not fair. And it's not fair to only think of one's own community as being worthy of of human rights. I mean, that's just a total lack of empathy, which is, you know, it's in a world of 8 billion people, how's that going to work out for us as a species? It sounds like it's a bad idea. Anyway, thank you all very much. I'm gonna I think I'm gonna jet and see you later if you want to hang around a little bit. Or it's fine, but I'm at the end of I'm out of gas.
Yeah, I was really planning to have been in bed by now myself, so.
Okay. Ciao, everybody. Thanks for coming. Love you. Like, subscribe, etc., and so forth. Throw me a nickel. Cheers. Bye.
Good night, all.